Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
You're clean, aren't you? Except for your tower. You're a tower junkie, Roland.
Hello and welcome to Tower Junkies, presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. Tower Junkies is a podcast celebrating the work of Stephen King, with an occasional focus on his magnum opus, the Dark Tower series. We discuss the themes, characters, and mythology of the series in Palaver episodes, and review the books and comic series in Kef episodes. But most of all, we discuss non-Tower King novels, TV and film adaptations of King's work, and the latest news about all things that serve the king. You can find more of our work at towerjunkieспod.com. You can also like the Facebook page at facebook.com/towerjunkiespod, and follow us on Twitter and on every other level of social media at Tower Junkies Pod. And if you'd like to support what we do here, you can become a patron at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer, which I have a special ad read that I'm going to read for the read of it. Let's see. I will do... with Mike, which one did I do? Do you remember? Was it the overstocked business or the law firm?
Crap. I think it was the overstocked business.
I think so too. So I'll do the law commercial. Okay. This is dumb. So here is an ad read for the Patreon. Are you a listener of The Obsessive Viewer and its subsidiary podcasts, Anthology and Tower Junkies? Do you find yourself wanting more content from these podcasters? If so, you may be eligible for compensation in the form of bonus content on Patreon. Hi, I'm Matt Hurt from Hurt Roll & Associates. Due to a recent settlement with Obsessive Viewer Podcasts, you can be granted access to hundreds of extra content, including B-roll episodes, commentary tracks, and early access to full episodes. For a small retainer ranging from $1 or $2 per month, or to $5 or $10 per month, you can get that extra podcast content you deserve. Don't let these podcasters get away with keeping content from you. Show them you mean business by going to patreon.com/obsessiveviewer and signing up. Again, that website is patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. Go there right now. Okay, so that's our pitch for Patreon. Tiny, do you know what I mean when I do you know what I'm referencing when I say go there right now?
It sounds familiar, but I can't place it.
Yeah, and I realize that a lot of listeners aren't going to pick up on it probably, but there is a quote-unquote local law firm called Keller & Keller.
Okay, yeah.
It's 1-800-2-KELLER. And it does like that form of commercial, and it ends with the guy saying, call 1-800-2-KELLER. That's 1-800-2-KELLER right now. And I always, growing up, whenever I saw that, I was like, that's kind of pushy. I'm like, okay.
Damn.
I haven't been in an accident, but okay. Sure, Mr. Keller.
Don't need a lawyer.
No. So anyway, again, that's at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. Go there.
I was just thinking of Bob Loblaw's Law Blog.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. You don't get any doublespeak when you go to blah, blah, blah. Oh, God. So I'm one of your hosts, Matt Hurt, and with me today, as usual, is Tiny. Tiny, how is it going today?
It's going, man.
Nice. We just recorded a special Patreon recording for including the harrowing experience of your 20th Indy 500.
Yes.
Yes. So go to patreon.com/obsessiveviewer and find out more. Mm-hmm. Find out about Tiny's boner with wood. Him playing with wood and getting a boner, and then going to the emergency room for 45 minutes and getting oral. I don't usually go that blue on the podcast.
I could have lost a finger, man. Like,
you didn't actually specify where exactly.
Making all
on
these jokes.
The hand.
It's like right here.
Oh,
right there.
okay.
Like I was holding a piece of wood and the knife came down like that, like right there.
Like right on not at the knee of your thumb and
like closer to the
finger?
first knuckle of my index finger.
Yeah. And you saw the bone.
Could see the bone. Yeah.
Oh.
Hope there's no tendon damage or anything.
Yeah,
I can move the finger, so I think I'm good, but
at least it's your left hand, which you're right-handed?
Correct.
Okay, yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
When I went to the emergency room, the doctor was like, so you're right-handed then? And I understood that she deduced that with pretty simple,
using your dominant hand to
right. But I thought of just in the moment. Of course, I didn't say this, but I was just thinking, are you a doctor or a witch? Yeah. So I'm an idiot.
Nice.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was gonna I was gonna tie that into Stephen King, but I don't know how. Are you Carrie White? I don't know. Anyway, today on the podcast, we are going to be discussing and reviewing Blood Hunt and Blood Bool, episodes 1 and 2 of Lisey Story, which both premiere on Apple TV Plus on June 4th. And it is my duty right now to mention that if you are a Patreon supporter at the $2 level, you will be getting access to my immediate reaction to each episode the second that it drops on Apple TV Plus. So consider signing that up at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer at the $2 level.
Sweet.
So I'm super excited about that. And Tiny, as it was teased before, we got screeners for Lisey Story, so that's why we're able to pump out these episodes, fingers crossed, or at least my fingers crossed. Yours, who knows what the fuck you can do with your fingers now. Fingers crossed we'll be able to be on schedule with these reviews and everything. But I don't know where I was going with that, except to humble brag about us getting screeners. So
it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. And we're in the unique position to be talking about Lisey's story in a vacuum. Because while the embargo has lifted for reviews, I haven't read any reviews. I
haven't either.
Nice. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
But first and foremost, I released an episode. Oh, no. First and foremost, I need to talk about the the Endless Elsewhere podcast. So our friend JP Leck, who is an alum of Shocktober in Irvington, our Shocktober in Irvington thing, which is a really cool thing that we have done in the past, maybe not ever again, maybe someday, I don't know.
Right.
But it was a yearly thing that we did every year, where we had local filmmakers submit short films, and we screened them for an audience, and did Q&As and everything. It was a lot of fun. Anyway, JP Leck was he holds the distinction of being the only filmmaker to appear at all 5 of our Shocktober in Irvingtons.
We did 5?
Yes.
Damn.
Yes, we did. 5 years. Oh.
That sounds right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been in all of them. He's a very prolific creator.
Incredibly prolific.
Yeah.
And his whole thing is this all-encompassing universe that he's created with just like this overarching plot line through different mediums and everything. And he just launched the Endless Elsewhere podcast, which I'm going to read his post. It's, quote, "When the calls to her late-night paranormal radio show go from strange to stranger, host Lindsay Malin launches an investigative podcast to explore the mysterious happenings. Unable to do it alone, however, she recruits the infamous J.P. Leck, a disgraced archivist and the keeper of curious lore. Together, they will uncover terrible secrets, delve into forbidden realms, and do battle with otherworldly creatures." The Endless Elsewhere podcast premiered today, with a more than 1 hour long episode, and each episode is going to be released on Wednesdays. So chapter 1 released today. Go to endlesselsewhere.com for more information and everything, and I'll put a link in the show notes as well.
Yeah.
And I will say that if you listen to it, you might recognize a voice in Chapter 1 and also maybe in Chapter 4.
Cool.
I was very honored to be asked to provide my voice. I did some vocal work on one of his short films as well, and for some reason he asked me back to do something for the podcast. So
very cool.
Yeah, I was very honored, and yeah.
And all of the stories are like part of the universe, but you don't have to have any background on the other stories, like
exactly,
because he's got books, he's got comics, he's got short films. photograph, like a photographic
like a photographic novel.
Yeah. He's got all kinds of stuff, but
very cool stuff.
Each story is self-contaid, so you can read
has
just
like
that
this vignette feel.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very
multi-talented guy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm super thrilled that he is jumping into the podcast realm.
It's awesome.
Yeah, so once again, go to endlesselsewhere.com for more information. And so without further ado, I think I'm going to bypass news and check-ins.
Okay.
Although I do have one check-in that I'm going to throw to you that is dealing with this. So before we get into our actual reviews of the episodes, Tiny, our Stephen King check-in, where are you at with the book Lisey story, and how do you feel about it? I released an episode last week. That was me reviewing the book and everything. And where are you at with the book? How do you feel about it? And what were your expectations going into the show?
Well, I have about an hour and a half left in the audiobook, so I'm almost there. I was really hoping to get it done today, but I just couldn't. I couldn't squeeze it in. I hate to say it, but I am not into the book like hardly at all.
Interesting.
And I'm still not.
It still hasn't picked up.
Still has not picked up for me. I think just the fact that I was confused and lost in the first handful of chapters or the handful of hours that I was never able to pick the thread back up. I only kind of know what's going on, and I'm pretty lost, but I still really like the characters, and it's still I think it's a good book. I think I just couldn't pick up on it. I should have focused on it a little harder, or I think the shortcoming is with myself, not the book itself. I think it's well written. I do have my criticisms of it. I think it's the plot is very twisted and not very not the best construction, I guess, for storytelling and plot wise, because it just jumps around so much, and it doesn't prompt you very well when he jumps to different timelines and stuff, and it's just very, very out of whack. And typically I'd be a fan of that, but for whatever reason, it's just not working for me, and I'm not really a fan, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's a shame. I'm not to retread last week's episode, but I had that same feeling about the first half of the book, really. And then about midway through, it kind of picked up for me. And really, I mean, honestly, I came away from it feeling like it was a solid book in Stephen King's canon.
Okay.
But ultimately, the things that I liked about it were things that I kind of had to maybe not wrestle with, like to find, but they were not the focal point of the plot. So there was kind of a little bit of, I don't want to say mental gymnastics, but there was a little bit of work on my end to kind of find a road into the book to really appreciate it. Having said that, I think going back, if I go back and re-listen to it or reread the book, I think I might get a better appreciation of it just because I know the plot line and everything a little clearer and everything. But I mean, it's really a kind of mid-tier Stephen King book for me. So
cool.
Yeah. So that is our brief rundown of the book. Tiny will give his final thoughts next time, I'm sure. But for more information about the book, check out our last episode that I did, episode 59. So today on the podcast, we are going to be discussing the first two episodes of Lisey's story. To bring us into this, I'm going to read a short promotional plot summary. Based on the novel by Stephen King, this terrifying thriller follows widow Lisey Landon, played by Julianne Moore, as a series of disturbing events revives memories of her marriage to author Scott Landon, played by Clive Owen, and the darkness that plagued him. So this is going to come out June 4th, and June 4th is the premiere of the first two episodes, Blood Hunt and Blood Bool, and we're going to talk about Blood Hunt first. And if we need to go into spoilers, we'll play like a brief clip here. But actually, so I posited this on Patreon. So to get us into the actual review of the episodes, I'm going to play a clip of the opening theme music. And the problem that I'm having, and this is a stupid problem, but for Patreon, for the $2 level, what I do is when I do episode reviews of TV shows or TV show reviews, I like to sing along to the opening theme music.
Oh, God.
And so, like, with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I did, like, a whole thing where anytime I played the Marvel kind of thing, the Marvel kind of header thing, I don't think I still have it on here. No, I don't. But anyway, you don't need to hear that. Anyway, so anytime I did the Marvel stuff, I would say, like, oh, Falcon and the Winter Soldier episode, this is my review of, and like that stuff. The problem that I'm having, Tiny, is that the opening theme music for Lisey's story, while beautiful, is very hard to sing to.
Oh, jeez.
So as we go into our review, I'm going to press play on the clip just to bring us into the review. I might try to do something. If you want to harmonize with me, by all means. But yeah, you'll see what I mean when I play the music here. Lisey story, 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 Lisey story. This is a book that I didn't really like all that much until I got to halfway through, and it got a little better. The thing I really liked about it was the marriage between Scott and Lisey, and that was told in flashbacks because Scott was dead from the beginning, and I think I found the root of the thing, and this is a review of the first 2 episodes of the show on Apple TV+, written by Stephen King.
Wow.
So yeah, so that was the best take that I've done, and I've done multiple attempts. So
I believe you.
Yeah, so patreon.com/obsessiveviewer at the $2 level to hear more of that bullshit. But yeah. So any thoughts? Any do you want to run out?
Well, a little bit.
Okay, good.
No, but the opening credits, I really like the visuals.
Yes,
very cool.
The kind of marionettes,
the marionette thing,
patterned after Julianne Moore and Clive Owen.
Yeah, the visuals and the music remind me a lot of Westworld.
Oh, I totally.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which I mean is a compliment because I think Westworld had a fantastic opening credits.
Oh, 100%.
So.
That's wow. That never clicked with me. Huh. And as I said, I've listened to this fucking opening theme music several times trying to find a route in.
Yeah.
But wow, yeah. Now I'm gonna wow, it really does.
It's a lot, very similar.
Yeah. And this was your first experience with anything on Apple TV Plus as well.
It is.
Any thoughts on the production value or anything?
I mean, it's top notch, and we're watching screeners too, so it's like there's always the caveat at the beginning that like the special effects and any
color correction and
right
stuff,
could still be improved or edited before the final release or whatever, something like that. So it's theoretical that as good as it looks, there could be even more improvement in the final product. But
it's even theoretical that they could include some jackass podcasters' vocals into the opening theme music.
Theoretical, but a super long shot.
Yeah. Well, fuck them, pay me. So,
but no, it's. I mean, they didn't cut any corners anywhere. It's top notch.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It looks really good. Especially that second episode. There's some visuals that really blew me away.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, but let's talk about Blood Hunt, the first episode starring Julianne Moore, Clive Owen, Dane DeHaan, and some other characters and actors and everything. The episode obviously premiered June 4th and is written by Stephen King and directed by Pablo Larraín. Have you seen any of his work before? I know he did Jackie with Katie Holmes.
I didn't look him up.
Okay.
I'm not sure what all he's done.
That's the only notable thing that I could think of that would have been on my radar.
Okay. I haven't seen that, so.
Okay. Yeah, me neither. So Blood Hunt. What were your kind of overall feelings on the first episode? How did you feel about this premiere episode of this limited series adaptation of Lisey's story?
I was very happy to be watching it. I think this story is a very visual story.
Absolutely.
I think it transfers better to a television or film medium, given how much it jumps back and forth in time. I think those are transitions that can translate a lot better in the visual medium, and I wasn't confused or lost at all in these first 2 episodes.
That's really interesting.
I was tracking it just fine. And there's also some conglomeration of a character or two. Most notably, Dashmiel kind of has a bigger role.
Yeah. Yeah, because in the book, he there is a dash meal.
He's just like in the flashback of when he got shot.
Right. And then I think he's also encompassing, I don't remember in the book if is it Woodburn? Am I making that up?
I don't remember the name, but it's a different professor.
Yeah, Dane DeHaan's drinking buddy.
Right.
Or Jim Dooley's drinking buddy.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
So they kind of combined those two characters in the story, which I thought was a great idea.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, and the cast they got is just fantastic. And so I would have been excited anyways, but I think they were all cast really well too. I really love Jennifer Jason Leigh for that role of Darla. That's perfect for her. But yeah, so I think the actors are well cast, and they're playing the right characters. And I think this is really, I was really impressed with the writing too, because I knew going in that Stephen King, he wrote all of this, right?
Yeah, he wrote all 8 episodes.
Okay, so I thought I remembered that going in. I knew he wrote these 2 episodes, but yeah, so I was curious to see how that might translate or how that might come across, and I'm glad to say that the writing is really tight. Nice. It's not, I don't feel like he was, he's like, well, this is my book and I want to make sure I include this, and he's got too much crammed in there, kind of like the Shining miniseries that he wrote and everything that was overloaded and too packed and needed some more editing. These 2 episodes, at least, did not feel that way at all. Nice. They were nice and tight. They progressed really well. All of the scenes, I think, they string together really well. Like, there's just a really good flow to these 2 episodes. I wasn't bored at any part or like wondering what was going on. I was really on board, and I'm very happy to be watching it because I think this is going to be good, and I think the story is good. It's just I could not connect to the book, and I really hate that as a big Stephen King fan, that there's something that I think is a very worthy entry in his career that I'm probably not going to have much of a relationship with, if any relationship with, because it just didn't work for me, and that's a bummer. But I think I'm going to get some reconciliation through the miniseries, thankfully. Nice.
That is so great to hear, because I feel like when we talked privately about the book in our little private messages and stuff, which you can get at our OnlyFans at OnlyFans. I'm kidding. Anyway, Jesus. I don't know why I'm so blue, but in our private messaging and everything, I kind of felt like I was like, oh man, this is, because I wasn't really feeling the book that much, and then I don't know. It was exciting for me that we have like this adaptation, and that we're hopefully, knock on wood, going to actually stick to a consistent release schedule and be able to review it the way that I want us to schedule and everything. And then like us talking about the book, I was just like, this might be a little bit of an uphill climb because the book, I wasn't connecting with it that much, and as I poorly sang, I think, during the opening theme music, it like the thing that I latched onto was the relationship between Scott and Lisey. And I agree with you. If you heard my review of the book last week, I agree with you that the flashbacks and the kind of the structure of it was a little unwieldy for me in the book, and it was a little disjointed. And my biggest issue was that there wasn't enough stuff in the present day happening to justify or to hold my attention to the present day while we did excursions into the past. And the miniseries does kind of compartmentalize some things, streamline some things, and that's good. I like the way that it does these things. It makes it very clear what the present day threat is. That narrative is very clear, whereas in the book, it was very not clear to me for a while.
Right.
However, that first episode, I felt not as lost as I did with the book, but I did have some concerns, thinking that, like, I'm very curious what audiences are going to take are going to make of this show, because I feel like it wasn't as viewer friendly as it could have been, because like I kept thinking like, okay, they're showing the shooting, which is cool, like that's a good big moment and everything, but they're not showing how he died. So that kind of, I feel like there's a little bit of confusion baked in there, because it's like, okay, you just kind of assume that he died in the shooting, but he didn't, and like I feel like that's going to cause some issues going forward. And
right.
I don't know. I just kind of felt like okay, and then they're referencing like the Booyah Moon and all this stuff, and I'm like, they're asking the audience to really let them show them the story over multiple episodes. And like it felt like it was not like when I finished that first episode, I was like, I don't know how many people are going to want to continue watching this.
Yeah.
Which feels like a big mark against the episode. I do think visually and performance-wise, it was very well done. So, and the second episode, which we'll get to, was like far and away much better for me, and it's where it really clicked together. But that first episode, I just felt there was a lot of stuff that was thrown at the wall, and I'm not really sure if I didn't know the story, if I hadn't read the book, I don't know how much I would have been invested in it going into episode 2.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree that I think having a knowledge of the book is kind of gives you a bit of an advantage with that first episode. Because, again, the shooting is a little almost like misleading. Because I remember when I was reading the book, I was like, okay, well, this is how he dies.
Right.
But it's not.
Right.
Spoiler.
Yep.
Yeah.
The performances, though, are fantastic.
Yes.
Is it Joan Allen that plays?
Joan Allen, yeah, which she's almost unrecognizable.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The emphasis on, and we're going to keep this non-spoilery, but the self-harm in it is very hard to watch.
It is
incredibly gruesome, very hard to watch,
especially with a hand wound right now.
Yeah, right. Yes. It's very like they kind of really go for it. Also, the shooting was really
definitely
big. So in terms of performances, how do you feel about Dane DeHaan as Jim Dooley?
Super excited about it. I really enjoy Dane DeHaan. I think he's had some bumps in the road lately. I think the most recent thing I've seen him in was that sci-fi action movie. I don't even remember what it was called. Son of a gun. What was that called? I think it was
Was it recent?
Probably 3 years ago, 2-3 years ago, where he was like playing like an action hero type, like James Bond in space kind of type with
Dane DeHaan?
Yeah, with the model chick who was in, I can't think of her name either. This is bad. It was a movie. It was kind of cool.
Okay.
God damn, what was that movie called? Valerian and something or other. Yeah.
Valerian in the Million Cities or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Oh, wow. In the City of a Thousand Planets.
There you go.
I think we've reviewed that on Obsessive Viewer, and I completely forgot about it.
Yeah, it's a very forgettable movie, unfortunately. Yeah. It's not bad.
No.
It's not a bad movie at all, but he was miscast in that. I don't think that was a great role for him, really.
Yeah.
But he was fine, but I think that he was in The Stranger.
I never saw The Stranger.
Yeah, I never saw that one either.
I don't know what that is.
I don't know what that is either.
But he was obviously in Chronicle, which is what I know him primarily from.
Right.
And The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Right. So I'm a fan of him from those earlier things, but I think after Valerian, he's had this kind of weird thing because I think he was miscast in that. But I'm really happy to see him in this. I think it's a great fit for him. He, in the first episode, not as much, but the second episode, he was giving me vibes of Javier Bardem as Anton Chigurh in No Country for Old Men. Just
interesting.
Has this weird social barrier between people and interprets social interactions in weird ways that usually cause a lot of tension and weird interactions. Like when he has the conversation with Dashmiel at the restaurant, he's eating the fried chicken. And then he's the scene at the library.
Yes.
It's reminded me so much of the scene at the gas station in No Country for Old Men with the quarter. Wow. Reminded me so much of that. Just the writing was so damn good.
That is you're onto something.
That scene's not in the book. as far as I remember, where he goes,
which
where he goes to the library and kind of.
I do not believe so. No.
Okay.
Which we'll talk about that in spoilers.
Will. Yeah, sorry, that's episode 2, but
was it episode 2?
I believe so.
No, that was episode 1.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
As soon as I saw that, I was like, all right, I'm into the show, and I'm really into Dane DeHaan in this role. I think he's going to flirt with the line. I think he might be a little over the top sometimes.
That's the thing that I kind of. I'm still after 2 episodes. Well, I've only watched the 2 episodes. I am a little undecided on him so far.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, because he's playing it so peculiar and so strange, which can be, it can achieve that Javier Bardem level of genius as Anton Chigurh. But I don't think, for my taste, I don't think he's found that yet. He's inched toward it quite a bit, quite a bit in episode 2. But that first episode, I was just kind of like, I'm not 100% sold.
Okay.
However, there is potential for him there, because the show is doing, like, he's doing something with this role that has this casual normalcy, that he has this, in terms of his body language, he is doing this casual kind of sadism and casual threat level to his performance, that I think could really, really hit a groove with me. But so far, it's just kind of like, it's not silly, but it's just kind of like, he's almost in a different show for me right now.
Okay.
But I think there's definitely room for him to really grow into it.
Nice.
Yeah. Do you want to go into spoilers for episode 1?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to play a little bit of music, and then we're going to go into spoilers for Blood Hunt, the first episode of Lisey's story. All right, spoilers on for Blood Hunt, the first episode of Lisey's story on Apple TV+. So Tiny, I don't know exactly how to delineate spoilers on this.
Yeah, right.
What do you want to talk about in terms of spoilers and more specific stuff?
I'm not really sure, I guess. I think, I don't really know how to go. I feel like we've started kind of spoilers already.
We kind of did, but let's talk about the library scene first.
Yeah.
Did you catch the Dark Tower reference?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
As soon as he was holding it, I was like, "That's Charlie and the Choo-Choo." Yeah.
I was thinking that. I was so like, it was a weird moment for me, because I was watching it, and then he's like, "This was Scott Landon's favorite book as a kid," and I was just like, "Okay, that's creepy. That's cool and everything." And then when he stands up, he's like, "Oh, you need to put it on display and everything." And then, like, I saw the top portion of it, I'm like, "That's Charlie the Choo-Choo" by Peril Evans.
Yeah.
/ Stephen King, but still, just like, and I was very happy in that moment.
Yeah, me too.
Did you squee at all?
I didn't, but I was smiling a lot.
Nice.
Put it that way, and I just loved that scene.
Yes,
so much.
Yes, that scene. He does, again, that kind of casual threat thing to the librarian. Mm-hmm. And this is where the show is kind of establishing him as the obsessed fan and as the crazy fan, the threatening fan.
Yeah.
And like, that's all well and good. That's really strong stuff. I think my biggest issue, the biggest kind of stumbling block I had with this episode in particular, was the ending with the phone call with Lisey, where he says the very big line in the book that he's going to, I don't remember exactly what it is, but he's going to do things to her in the place where she wouldn't let the boys touch her at the junior high dance.
Yeah.
Which is such a chilling threat.
Yes, it is.
And I think maybe it's just me having read the book right before and having my own performance in it as a voice actor myself. Check out endlesselsewhere.com. But as an actor who he as someone who treads the boards himself and does his own performances. Anyway, so I kind of felt like that just did not come across as dark and heavy as it should have in the show. Mm-hmm. How did you feel about it and feel about that phone call between Lisey and Jim Dooley?
Yeah, I was okay with it. I didn't have as much of an issue with it. I do think it was stronger in the book, and I feel like it was sort of cheapened a little bit. I think earlier I mentioned how I think Dane DeHaan is going to cross the line and is maybe already flirting with the line of being over the top. And I think the part where the conversation was over and he was like repeatedly slamming the phone down in that robotic way, that kind of took me out of that scene a little bit.
Yeah.
And again, I like you were saying, I think the delivery of that, I don't want to say iconic line, but the noteworthy line wasn't as great, and didn't have as much weight behind it as was in the book. And I feel like the character in the book of Jim Dooley has, there's a performance level to it because I'm listening to the audiobook.
Right.
And I think the audiobook does a good job of characterizing him.
Because in the book, he's described as having a potentially fake, like, Southern accent.
Right.
Which the TV show version does not have.
Which I'm glad for. I'm glad.
Me too.
I'm glad of that. But I feel like in the book, he's a little more straightforward. He's kind of just pretty straightforward, menacing kind of guy and doesn't have the whole weird social aspect to him. I think he's a little more straightforward in the book, which is fine. He's great in the book. But I think there's another dimension to the character that Dane DeHaan is bringing to life, and that's what excites me about it. So
nice.
Yeah.
Like I said, the second episode really made me feel better on all fronts about the show and everything. So that's something. In terms of the self-harm of Amanda and that whole plot line, I thought was handled a lot better in the show than the book. Because the book, like I said, the book is competing with flashbacks to Lisey's marriage to Scott and Scott's the shooting of Scott and everything.
Yeah.
And all of this stuff, while also competing with us in the present day with Amanda self-harming and having her kind of psychotic break and everything, and the sisterhood kind of conflict and everything.
Yeah.
It's a lot, but I think that the show really streamlines it and really makes it a little bit more palatable.
I agree, because in the book, I was sort of thinking of Amanda as kind of just being I don't want to cheapen her actual mental illness, but I was thinking of her more as like just a overreacting woman, like, oh, my boyfriend got engaged and she's just acting out, and I didn't think of her in terms of having, at least in that moment when I was reading the book, the early scenes with Amanda, I didn't think of her as like having a true mental illness and like needing professional help. And so I wasn't necessarily writing her character off, but I wasn't really that interested in her. And of course, later on in the book, she that dynamic changes a lot.
Right.
And in the show, right from the get-go, you know that she has she's crazy basically, and she has, for lack of a better term or whatever, I don't know the technical terms for mental illness, but it's blatant right from the get-go.
Yeah. And
Joan Allen is just peak performance right off the bat. I thought she was her and Dane DeHaan for me are the standouts. So I'm excited to see the direction that she takes the character. So
yeah, me too. And one of the other kind of complaints I had with that first episode was how I felt like it was a little too confusing with Scott's connection with her. Because she becomes kind of a conduit to his messaging to Lisey.
Right.
And it's not as pronounced in the show, which is fine. But there's that scene where she's in the kitchen and he comes and breathes the water to her to heal her and everything. And still, I have no idea if that was a flashback to a previous time or if that was present day and that was like his spirit coming to like heal her illness or anything or do whatever. Yeah, I had no idea. What was your take?
I thought it was I was fully under the impression that was a flashback to the first time that she
probably
self-harmed.
Yeah.
Because he like drives there and gets out of the car and goes in and
And that's where I'm leaning as well, and I'm sure that that's the case. My problem is that her positioning there is exactly how she was in a previous scene.
Right.
And I couldn't delineate flashback or present day.
And she looks the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're right. It is confusing.
Yeah.
I'll say that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a little confusing and everything. But again, that confusion really subsided with the second episode.
Mm-hmm.
Having said that, do you want to talk about the second episode?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Parting thoughts on Blood Hunt, the first episode of Lisey's story. I wasn't quite sold on it. There was other things that I didn't really understand that much. The kind of vernacular that's thrown at us, like Blood Bool and Bools and
Right.
Booyah Moon and stuff like that. Stuff is stuff that I was also confused about in the book as well for a while.
Right.
But it's demonstrated a little bit better in episode 2. So, shall we go on to episode 2 of Lisey's story?
Yes.
Okay, so episode 2 of Lisey's story is Blood Bool. It also premiered June 4th and also stars Julianne Moore, Clive Owen, Joan Allen, Dane DeHaan, Jennifer Jason Leigh, and some other actors. Written by Stephen King, directed by Pablo Larraín. So, Tiny, this episode, we'll go non-spoilers and then spoilers. Do you want me to sing to the theme song again?
Please, God, no.
Okay, all right. Lisey's story. I'm kidding. I'm not going to do that. So anyway, so Blood Bool. This episode, the biggest strength that I felt with it was the visuals of Booyah Moon, which we'll talk about in spoilers, and the relationship in flashbacks of Scott and Lisey, which was by far the biggest narrative selling point for me in the novel. And I like the way it's demonstrated in the show. So, in overall thoughts, non-spoilers, what did you think of Blood Bool, episode 2 of Lisey's story?
I was really hooked after this episode. I'm kind of in a place now where it's like I'm excited to get back to it and keep watching it.
Nice.
Yeah, it really started to come together in this episode. I think I agree. The flashback stuff really worked here. I think most notably when the whole Blood Bool scene where Scott hurts himself was really good. It was much. I appreciated that scene so much more in the show than I did the book. Because in the book I was like, wait a minute, is this going on now? Is this? Yeah. Did he actually cut his hand? Like, what's happening? I really did not get it.
Because and we'll talk more about that specific scene in spoilers, I think. But in the book, she comes to it in progress, and in the show, we see it happen, and we see it happen.
Yeah.
So that was a good point. Also, that was a very frustrating point for me because right before that scene, I actually watched that on race day here, and I was very frustrated because I was like, oh, I'm going to be able to watch this. I'm halfway through this episode. I'm going to get to record my Patreon review of it and everything. This is going to be a really good, productive race day. And then my internet shat the bed.
Oh.
And like, I was like, I paid the bill. So like, what's the deal? And like, there was like an outage, and it was like, Xfinity was like, oh, we're not going to be able to fix it until 4 hours from now. And I'm like, what?
Damn.
And then I was like, okay, well, I'll just watch the rest of it on my phone, like a chump.
Right.
And then I realized, oh, there are thousands of people in town probably using the cell service and all the cell towers and everything. So I'm probably not going to get a good signal on my data. But fortunately, my internet came back shortly thereafter, and I finished it. But anyway, that scene was fantastic. I really like the peek we get at Scott's childhood, and I really like. It's interesting because I like the way that it slowly it hints at it. We get just a sliver of that in this episode, and knowing the book, we're going to get more detail on that. Knock on wood and everything, but. I really like that we get just that little inkling of that. So I like that breadcrumb.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah.
And also the plot with Jim Dooley in this episode really, really came into focus for me as well. Yeah. We neglected to mention in spoilers for the first episode, the shovel to the face.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
There's some violence.
There is some violence.
Yeah.
Yes. That was very intense and very cool.
Right. I was thinking more, like when I was reading in the book, I was thinking more along the lines of like she takes the flat part of the shovel and hits him on the head with it to knock him out type thing.
Yeah.
But no, she uses the edge of the shovel to like slice the side of his face open. And I was like, holy fuck.
It honestly, it was like she was you and his face was your hand.
Right. Yeah, pretty much.
Oh.
Yeah, that was some rough stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was cool. And how'd you feel about Dane DeHaan in this episode? This is the episode with the fried chicken with dash meal.
Right.
Yeah.
I really like, I don't know. I'm really entranced with his dialogue, really.
Nice.
I don't know. I feel like he's very calculated, but kind of like Dashmiel is saying, he's not like an educated guy,
right?
But he's intelligent, and he's making these. He's clearly disturbed, and he can make all these links with this fiction writer, and he can interpret his storytelling and his subtext and subplots and stuff like that. But he's this goonish muscle kind of guy. He has this, enforcer kind of presence to him, and he just has the what am I trying to say? He has sort of a I don't really give a shit what people think of me. Yeah. But like to a fault level, because he's like just the way he's having this. I don't know. I was appreciating the physical part of that scene where he's like he digs into that fried chicken and he's like eating that fried chicken. It's not like just a prop on the table. Right. Like I don't know, it just felt he wasn't like minding his manners while he was talking with his mouth full, and I don't know, there's something about the way he delivers his lines and his dialogue is really, I'm kind of entranced by him so far. I think I'm into it a little more than you are, I guess.
Yeah. And I will say that he is very haunting in his performance in a lot of things. Yeah. And a lot of that is definitely the dialogue is really fantastic. Like the moment, I think it's when he's telling Dashmiel, he says like, he threatens Dashmiel's wife and says like, don't like, or some, I forget exactly how it is, but it's like, oh, you better be careful with your wife or something like that. Right. And that's on that thread. That's really interesting that the show really does a good job of demonstrating the idea of Jim Dooley thinking that Lisey Landon is not worthy of having access to Scott Landon's life's work and his legacy. Yeah. And that's something I think is demonstrated and depicted really well in the show. And that's something that I felt was a bit of a failing of the book to an extent. So I'm glad to see that good old Steve kind of recalibrated and adjusted that for my taste, at least. He did that as a personal favor to me.
Right. Good old Steve. Yeah. He also had that scene where he goes to Scott Landon's apartment.
Childhood home.
Yeah, the apartment where they used to live.
Is it the childhood home? Or
it's the apartment where they lived together.
That's right, because it's where the flashback
The Blood Bool, yeah.
Yeah.
And he has that interaction with that guy. And again, he's eating in that scene. I don't know. There's something about, I don't know. I'm really entranced by him.
Very Ocean's 11.
Yeah, totally, totally.
Yeah,
but yeah, just the way he's like, you look like a TV watcher. I can see little TVs behind each one of your eyes when you open them, and I was just like, man, he's just like methodical and just really out there. I'm just into it. So those are some of the scenes that jumped out to me. But my favorite is the Blood Bool scene.
Oh, yeah, which we'll talk about in spoilers. Yep. But I will say also that I do have a correction from my review of the book. Okay. So I listened to the audiobook, and this was something I did not quite get. I kind of had a 50-50 shot of getting the term right. But the kind of monster I thought was being referred to as a lawn boy. But I checked the closed captions. It's a long boy. Oh, okay. Long. Gotcha. So that was cool with the doctor and everything. Yep. How did you feel about the scavenger hunt aspect, the Bool Hunt? All of these little trinkets that are left behind by Scott that Lisey needs to find. Yeah, I'm not as into it, and I'm not. I
I'm not picking up on it in the book, or it's not really keeping me interested in the book.
Yeah.
So I'm not as into it in the show, but I think it's coming across a little more coherently in the show.
Yeah.
That is a thing that's an improvement in my book, but I think Stephen King is big on using these really unique, kind of goofy, silly phrases and terms for things, but they're fun, and I think they have a twinge of realism to them, that people actually talk like that and have goofy sayings, and like the mother smucking thing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Sowisa, I really enjoy that.
Me too.
That term. Strap on when it seems appropriate.
I was really, really bummed that after I recorded the review of the book, I forgot to use that in the opening of the episode. So I was pretty bummed that I didn't do that.
But just even like down to the nicknames, like Manda Bunny. Like I have my niece.
Baby Love.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. My niece is named Brooke, and we call her Brookie Cookie all the time.
Aw,
so yeah, she's
cute.
adorable. But so
Do you want to hear all the things I call pizza?
I know them by
she's
heart.
a pretty
Please
little
don't.
pizza roll.
Oh my
She's so
God.
precious. Not based on the novel Push by Sapphire.
Fuck.
And she is just a precious little baby. And she's like, yes, Daddy, I'm good.
Anyways. But yeah, so that realism jumps out to me. But one of the weirdest so far is Bool. I'm not getting it really. Like I understand.
Yeah.
I think it has multiple meanings, and like it's like a reward or a prize at the end of a scavenger hunt. But it also seems to be like this like a symbolic gesture thing. The Blood Bool.
Yeah.
And then was there like a third use of the term?
I honestly don't remember. My understanding is that Bool is, like you said, I think it's like I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, it's
Like I don't think it's like a one-to-one thing of like, oh, it's a scavenger hunt. I think it's like Bool in certain contexts is a search for something, or the prize at the end of it, whether it's an RC Cola or
right.
something else.
I think the Bool is supposed to be the reward at the end of the scavenger hunt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the Blood Bool is letting out bad thoughts through self-harm.
Okay.
I think.
It's just so strange that it's used in both. They seems like two very different things.
Yeah.
And the origin of the word is odd as well.
I don't even know what the origin is.
Yeah, I don't know that it's really laid out. Like why is it called a bool? Like
right.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's very confusing.
It's one of those goofy Kingisms.
Yeah. There is a spoilers. I'm not going to say it, so I'll talk about that later. But the that's the thing. I will go ahead and say it. So one of the things, and I talked about this on Patreon, one of the things that I appreciate about this adaptation is that, fingers crossed, Steve King has really, really lessened the idea of Scott Landon retreating to a childlike state when he's talking to Lisey about his childhood and about bullies and everything.
Right.
Which is something I did not connect with all that well with the book, because that just did not do anything for me.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to see it at least not being that present in the show. How did you clock that, or how did you feel about that?
I thought it was out of place in the book. I don't know how I feel about it in the book, because I have such a wishy-washy relationship with the book anyways. But yeah, it didn't do anything for me in the book. And so I'm glad it's not really present in the show. It's accents, I guess, like a Southern accent is kind of playing a role in the book, because Jim Dooley has the basically fake Southern accent. Yeah. Which I'm not sure what the motivation behind that is, and like why it's a feature of that character. I think, and this could be a stretch, but I think it is maybe just a meta thing for King, specifically because he made that character be, or at least he made reference to the character being from a specific area that relates to the main, like the villain character in Secret Garden, Secret Window. And that had like a Southern kind of accent to it. So I can't remember off the top of my head where that location is, but there is kind of precedence in the Kingiverse to have a character in the book have that Southern accent. So maybe that's the connection. But I'm glad that it's,
absent from the show.
Yeah, me too. I don't think it was necessary.
No, I don't think it really added anything to it.
Right. Yeah. But I wish I could remember the name of I could just look it up. The name of the voice actor who did the book. I think.
Oh, Mara Whittingham.
Thank you. Okay.
She played. Oh my God, she played. What's his face's wife in The Outsider. Oh my God, why can't I think of his name? Ben Mendelsohn.
Ben Mendelsohn's wife? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I didn't realize that's who that was.
Yeah.
But she did a good job. I think
I agree.
the southern accent she used for Jim Dooley was good. I think, like I said, he's more menacing, more straightforward menacing in the book.
Yeah.
And I think that translated better, and her performance was part of that for sure.
And in the show, as kind of not, I wouldn't say disconnected as I am from Dane DeHaan's performance, but as lukewarm as I am on it. Mm-hmm. The reason why I say that it has so much room is because there is that, it's like it's building this groundwork. It's building this framework for more outspoken, evil kind of terror of Jim Dooley. And I think that it's smart to have it be a little bit more reserved and more peculiar menacing, peculiar tension, so that when or if the actual threat reaches an apex or reaches a point of no return where he becomes outright dangerous rather than menacing and threatening, there can be more room for him to go full throttle in that kind of performance, which I think that could be really, really good in episodes to come. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Should we go into spoilers for Blood Bool?
Yes.
All right. Spoilers on. I'm going to go ahead and play a little bit of theme music and everything. This time I'm going to turn it down a little bit because that was loud last time. All right, and spoilers on for Blood Bool, episode 2 of Lisey's story on Apple TV Plus. Tiny, let's talk about the bird, I think, first of all.
The bird, yeah.
Yes. And I said this on Patreon, so I'm sorry for the $2 and above Patreon supporters, but as a cat lover,
yeah,
I am glad that Stephen King, again, as a personal favor to me, his number one fan, who could not remember an actor in The Outsider so I'm definitely don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of Stephen King. Anyway, in the book, he kills a cat, and in the show, he kills a bird.
Right.
So that warmed my heart. But the thing that I really loved, and it was actually the moment where I really started connecting with the show, was when she comes home and she finds the bird in the mailbox, which I thought was just so, like, the sound design was so gruesome, so disgusting, so cool.
Some good sound work in the show.
Yes. And what I love about that is a scene or two before that, we see Jim Dooley go into the house and we see him fiddling with the microwave as he was in his little studio apartment lair, which I thought was really cool, like light misdirection, because you don't know what he's doing with that.
Yeah.
And then he just casually gets a Coke and starts drinking it and everything. And so, like, the combination of that, like that weird anachronistic scene, and then the payoff of that with her putting the hand in the mailbox, I felt was just really, really well done in terms of tension. And it really hit a chord with me in the way that the show is unfolding. And I was like thinking, like, this is demonstrating this plot a lot better than the book was. So anyway, how did you feel about that element of the show?
Yeah, I was mostly focused on the gruesomeness of it and the technical details of it. The sound totally jumped out to me too. It was the best word to describe it is it was squishy.
Yes.
Which is a disturbing word to use, but yeah, I don't have a ton to say. It didn't jump out to me the way it did to you, I guess.
Okay.
But it was definitely pretty awesome. And I didn't quite make the microwave connection and everything like you did. But yeah, that's it was definitely creepy and really well done.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And Let's talk about Booyah Moon. Also, we're kind of jumping around a little bit, and then we'll talk about the Blood Bool. But Booyah Moon, Amanda is sitting there with all of these other kind of specters watching the hollyhocks, and just the visuals of that. The cinematography was gorgeous.
Right.
Really, really eye-popping.
It had me wondering how much of like the set and everything is practical. There's a really cool shot where they kind of start on it starts on like kind of a tight image of Amanda on the banks of the pool, and then it zooms out and it shows you all these characters. It's almost like an amphitheater. Yeah. There's all these characters, and it's huge. It's a really big set, and it just makes me wonder how was that like they build that whole set, and like I'm curious how much of it's practical, how much of it's CGI, because it looked so freaking cool, and it's way beyond any imagery I picked up or that I imagined in my head when I was reading the book.
Same here.
Way beyond any of that.
The kind of glow of the moon and just the lighting of it, the dusky kind of atmosphere.
Lighting was awesome.
Yeah. All I kept thinking was, we got to do a live podcast there. So it just looked really, really, really spectacular.
Right.
Again, very confusing for someone if someone doesn't understand or hasn't read the book. Yeah. I feel like there's a fear of that there, but I think that there's enough breadcrumbs in this episode to really kind of whet people's appetite, which is weird because it's a quarter of the way through the show now. Right. So we're at the end of the first quarter. We're hooked, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. Blood Bool. Yes. So I really, really like... First of all, we didn't get a chance to really talk about Clive Owen in the first episode. Yeah. This episode really, really gives him a platform. Yeah. Because we get to see him in his relationship with Lisey, kind of not necessarily in the early stages of it, but as they're more comfortable. And we see kind of a big point of contention with them, with him selling his first book and kind of blowing her off to get drinks with a coworker. How did you feel about that scene? And do I dare ask, Tiny, did you happen to pick up on a Stephen King Easter egg in this sequence of Lisey's story?
The Easter egg? No, I did not pick up on. But I really loved that scene. I think I just love the performance of Julianne Moore and Clive Owen. Their chemistry and their confrontation together is so good. Yeah. I love the reaction of Scott Clive Owen when he comes home and he realizes she's upset. Yeah. He has almost this kind of like juvenile teenage boy reaction where he's like, oh, I can fix this, and has this goofy thing. I feel like his character is sort of, because his childhood was so fucked up, he has a bit of a Arrested Development or like a regression of childhood reaction to certain pieces of trauma or big moments in his life.
Yeah, and that level of subtlety in the show was very much absent from the book. Right. Because Stephen King really leaned into that aspect of Scott's personality. And I really, really like and appreciate the subtlety of that in Clive Owen's performance and in the writing of the show. Right. Because it is there. Like you said, it's there, that kind of regression, but it is much more subtle.
Definitely. Yeah. But I like that reaction, and I think Julie Lisey picks up on it, and she's like, okay, I'm happy you sold your book, and she's kind of cuts him a break a little bit, but he's still locked on this. I can fix this thing, and that's when he goes and runs off, and just from there, it's the visuals take over, and it's there's like this little pursuit type thing, and then he starts having these flashbacks with his father. Yes. And he almost uses it as fuel to make himself mad enough to punch through a damn plate glass window.
And there's like this kind of, I think it's like a tracking shot that's focused on him as he's walking.
Yes.
And it is so cool. And then like,
really well done.
As he's like halfway there, it just freezes because my internet went out for 5 or 10 minutes. That was really cool.
Shitty timing.
Yeah.
Did you catch who plays his father in that scene?
Oh, I did not.
I haven't looked it up. I hope I'm not wrong.
Okay.
I haven't looked it up. I believe it was Michael Pitt.
Oh, I did not pick up on that. Huh.
I need to check.
Didn't do my due diligence, but while you do that, I will unveil what I think is a Stephen King Easter egg.
Okay.
So Scott Landon in that flashback sold his first book. His first novel was sold. Do you remember the amount that it was sold for?
$2,500.
Yes. Yeah. And having just read On Writing, which we will be reviewing next week on June 11th, do you remember how much Stephen King sold Carrie for?
Was it the same amount?
It was the same amount.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
So I thought that was a kind of a cool little like Easter egg that he put in there.
I think I did remember that, but I guess I didn't quite pick it up as an Easter egg.
Okay.
But yeah.
Nice.
I do remember that. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. And then, so I was so excited about that. I tracked down where Stephen King lived at one point in his life, and then I went there and I just knocked on the door, and some guy answered, and I was just like, "You have TV behind your eyes, and you're living in the precipice of greatness."
Nice.
So do you have it, or do you need me to keep doing
Please stop.
a terrible Dane DeHaan impression?
Either I'm mistaken or he's uncredited. I'm trying to look for like Scott's father. I can't remember his name.
Ooh, yeah. Putting me on the spot there.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I'm not seeing Michael Pitt listed in the cast.
Okay.
But I don't know. Maybe the episode hasn't aired yet, so maybe
that's true.
I don't know.
We gotta flex that screener cred. I don't know. So dumb.
Totes.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe I'm wrong. It looked a lot like that's immediately who I thought of. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm very curious if that is who that is. We will find out soon, I'm sure. That is my pledge to you guys. We will find out who plays Scott Landon's dad.
Yeah.
So yeah. So the actual Blood Bool, what I found interesting, and this kind of like a little bit of a subtle connection between Scott and Lisey is Lisey, I don't remember if this was the first episode or the second episode, but where she is in the car and she is like slamming her fist against the glass.
Her head.
Yeah, it was her head. Yes.
Right.
And that just kind of reminded me of that connection between her and him with the Blood Bool.
Definitely.
But yeah.
To conclude the Blood Bool thing, just the visuals, and this is the second beautiful piece of sound work, was him cutting himself on that glass.
Yes.
Like the sound, I don't know how the hell they made that sound or what even to compare it to.
Yeah.
But that was really good work.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like gratuitous or like, off-putting or gross. I mean, it made you wince, but I think it was supposed to make you wince and feel a little uncomfortable. But it was appropriate for what they were going for. I think
absolutely.
I think they achieved what they were going for with that.
Yeah,
that bit of gore. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In the next morning scene with Lisey and Scott, he's cooking breakfast, and then he's like, "So are we to marry?" That is like beat for beat taken from the book. And one of the things I really, really appreciate about the book is that relationship between Scott and Lisey, and how kind of the overarching theme of the story of the book is how Lisey is Scott's light through his darkness, as he is dealing with darkness in his life. And he's plagued by darkness, as the plot summary described. And I really, really felt such a high level of affection and love in that scene between the two as they're talking.
Right.
It's just this very gentle kind of companionship that is just so beautifully told. And I think it really translated well to television.
I agree.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. What else is there to talk in spoilers for Blood Bool? The scavenger hunt, the Dr. Superfan thing, having the little clue for the cedar chest.
Right, in the book. Yeah.
Oh, sibling rivalry, or the kind of level of, I don't want to say animosity, but the level of kind of disdain that like Darla has for Lisey, because Lisey married into money.
Right.
I feel like it's a little bit on the nose for the show. But I do like how the show brings it to a level where like Lisey doesn't have like 8 million sisters. She just has the 2.
Yeah.
And while it is kind of on the nose, I do like how it is as a kind of an overarching thing.
Yeah, and again, I think that plays to the strengths of Jennifer Jason Leigh as an actor. I really like her in that role. It makes me think of her character in the show Atypical. She plays the mother in that show. And,
I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, she's really good in it, and she's not a similar character. I won't say that, but just kind of neurotic and a little controlling and stuff like that. And that's definitely how the character Darla is, for sure. Jealous, stuff like that. Yeah.
Yes.
Some themes across those 2 characters that I think that's great casting for her in that role. Yeah.
Yeah. And also the pursuit of Jim Dooley, and the kind of the police presence and everything. How'd you feel about that playing out, leaving kind of, I don't know. Oh, one thing I kind of had, I have a slight issue with, and I talked about this on Patreon at the $2 level, but there was a scene that I just felt was very clunky, very, very minor nitpick. But the cop reading the note to Lisey, I was like, you don't need to read it aloud, a threatening note to the victim. Like, I know that that's just so the audience can hear what the note says.
Right.
But maybe figure out a better way to kind of give us that information.
Yeah, I agree. It was clunky. That's a good word for it. It was just really clunky. But yeah, I'm not sure the best way to get that information to the viewer.
Yeah. So I don't know, but overall, I thought it was good. I thought that this episode. Should we wrap up the review?
Yes, please.
Okay. So overall, Blood Bool was a very big step up for me, and I really, really am very much interested to see where the show goes. That's kind of a cheat because of the book, but I'm very eager to kind of continue watching it because I think that there is some really good stuff in the second episode, and that's where it kind of gelled together for me. From kind of a shaky start with the first episode. So how'd you feel about it, and what are your thoughts going into the next episodes?
Again, I'm excited for it. I think the introduction of Booyah Moon and that those visuals and everything are just really exciting. And I'm looking forward to the characters and getting a better feel for this story, given how lost I was with the book. Yeah, I'm like, I kind of want to just go watch it all right now, but I also want to savor it and have it fresh in my mind for when we review it. So
well, since we have screeners, we can watch them as soon as we can, and then review them and bank them and everything. Yeah, so that I won't have anxiety over releasing them, but I'm excited, and I do like a lot of the things we've talked about. So so that's our I think that is also maybe part of the reason why they're premiering the 2 episodes together, because that first episode, like I said, I don't know how audiences will kind of acclimate to it. And so I think it's smart for them to release the 2 episodes, because that end scene of Booyah Moon, I think that's the end scene of episode 2.
Yeah.
I mean, that is such a striking image to leave on, and there's so much more plot movement in the second episode that I think that is maybe their way of kind of sidestepping, like, okay, a drop off of viewers from the first episode.
Right.
So fingers crossed that it does well, but yeah, I'm in. We're hooked in.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think that'll do it. For this episode of Tower Junkies.
Totes.
So, once again, you can get my exclusive Patreon recordings of my immediate reviews of each episode the second that they hit Apple TV Plus at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. At the $2 level, we are going to be releasing our reviews on the main feed of Tower Junkies, like this episode that you just listened to, every other week. And so next week, we're going to have a review of On Writing with our friend Mike from Obsessive Viewer, and As Good As It Gets, which As Good As It Gets has the honor of being the jingle, the song, the music that we use for the jingle. This music here, this is As Good As It Gets. I'll play that a little bit later too. But they have a Kickstarter right now that you can pre-order their new album, The Spirit of the Staircase. Check that out. Kickstarter link in the show notes. All that stuff. Very good stuff. And so look forward to our review of On Writing next week. And then the week after that, we're going to continue our reviews of Lisey's story. We're going to be, I'm going to go ahead and start playing us out now. We're going to be reviewing episodes 3 and 4 of Lisey's story. That's Under the Yum Yum Tree and Jim Dandy. So having said all that, thank you guys so much for listening, and long days and pleasant nights.
And may you have twice the number.
And now, here's a short clip from our Patreon exclusive RSS feed. To hear the full clip and more exclusive Patreon content, go to patreon.com/obsessiveviewer and become a patron at the minimum rate of $1 per month. Thank you and enjoy. It's a bird. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And I kind of wonder, I don't know if that's, I don't, this is my ignorance, my ornithological ignorance. That's my band name. But anyway, my ornithological ignorance, I don't know if that's a crow, raven, or vulture, or and I also don't know if crow, raven, and vulture are the same thing. Like, I don't know if that's like I don't know if those are synonyms for each other or they are completely different birds. I don't know, but yeah, so that's my ornithological ignorance. That's that segment of this review. We're in the ornithological ignorance corner. So anyway.
Tower Junkies is edited and produced by Matt Hurt and presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. For a full archive of our episodes, go to towerjunkiespod.com/archive. You can also like our Facebook page at facebook.com/towerjunkiespod and follow us on Twitter at towerjunkiespod. If you enjoy the show, please take a couple minutes to leave us a rating and a quick review on Apple Podcasts. This is the easiest way to support what we do, and all it costs is just a little bit of your time. If you'd like to donate to the podcast, you can make a PayPal donation at towerjunkiespod.com/donate or support us on Patreon for recurring donations and access to commentary tracks and B-roll audio recorded exclusively for patrons at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. Every donation goes toward paying the fees to keep the podcast running and is greatly appreciated. For official Obsessive Viewer merch, including shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more, visit our TeePublic store. You can find a link to the store in the show notes of this episode and at obsessiveviewer.com/donate. Or you can simply search for Obsessive Viewer at teepublic.com. For information about our annual live event showcasing short horror films from local filmmakers, check out shocktoberinirvington.com. And for an archive of all our events, as well as news about potential future events, head over to obsessiveviewer.com/live. For more podcast content, you can find our flagship movie and TV review and discussion show, The Obsessive Viewer Podcast, at obsessiveviewer.com and on Twitter at obsessiveviewer. You can also find Anthology, Matt's solo podcast covering The Twilight Zone, and other classic and contemporary science fiction anthology TV shows at anthologypod.com and OVAnthologyPod on Twitter. And finally, check out The Secular Perspective, Tiny's side project podcast, which tackles current events and life's big questions from the perspective of secular hosts Chad and Amanda at thesecularperspective.com. Music for the podcast is provided with permission from Fingers T on YouTube. Additional bumper music is provided courtesy of As Good As It Gets, which can be found at facebook.com/asgoodasitgetsband. Thank you so much for listening. Long days and pleasant nights.
Kitty!